Hi, everyone. I am going to try to keep this short tonight so we can go stalk the election and see how it's going. But I wanted to share my takeaways from Carrie Wilkerson's talk at Leaders Retreat. Carrie Wilkerson is kind of nicknamed the Barefoot Executive. She has a book called The Barefoot Executive, and she spoke to the Jewels in Hawaii, and they loved her. And so she came back at Leaders Retreat and spoke at our second session at Leaders Retreat, and I absolutely loved what she had to say. First of all, she was just super cute and really like peppy and upbeat, and I just really liked her. But I loved the things that she had to say, and obviously it was Leaders Retreat, so she talked a lot about leadership. But I feel like, obviously, first of all, if we have one person on our team, we need to be a leader, right? But we also, if we carry ourselves as leaders when we don't have large teams, then we automatically walk into that role as people join us. So if we are behaving as a leader in terms of Plexus in all of life, when someone signs on with us, they automatically treat us like a leader regardless of our team size. So that's why I think it's important, regardless of our team size, to go ahead and function as a leader in terms of Plexus. So the first thing I wanted to say is she started out her talk, and I'm going to read this just so I don't miss it. And she was talking about herself and how she loved doing what she does because this is what she did. And she said, I take the weight of the world off of the shoulders of the people listening so that they can laugh and open up and relax and then see and receive what I have to say and see how life-changing it could be. And so I really liked that because I felt like she was just talking about what she does. But what I liked about it is that's what true leadership does. True leadership, brings any situation to a point where someone is able to open up and receive whatever it is, knowledge, a nugget, training, something different, inspiration, something. They're able to open up the people that they're leading to a place that they're able to receive something different that changes their course of action or their whatever. So I really like that because I felt like it was so key for leadership is, holding ourselves in a posture that what we're doing brings down the people that we're leading, brings down their defenses so that they're able to see where they need to go. So I think that's key in terms of leadership. It's also key in terms of Plexus when we're talking with potentials, being able to have a conversation that's low key and engaging so that they're able to see how Plexus could change their life, so that they're not focused on, oh my gosh, this person's trying to get me to join their team, or they just want to make me skinny. Oh my goodness, Jess, that message you got today was hilarious. Jess got a message today in response to a cold message, and basically the guy said, I'm fat and happy. Like, I'm not interested. I'm fat, but I'm happy. I thought it was so funny. But we want to have those types of conversations where people feel engaged enough with us to have a back and forth, to talk, to be open and share where they're at, even if they're fat and happy, because we know Plexus is not just weight loss, and maybe he has something else that he could use some help with. So anyway, getting us to that point where we're able to talk to people in a way that their defenses are brought down and they're able to see the difference that Plexus can make in their life in terms of potentials, but also what I said in terms of leadership, that we're able to lead the people around us in a way that their defenses are brought down so they can see the hope of a different life, the hope of something better, whether that is simply as simple as they need to poop and the hope of being able to poop, or the hope of true financial freedom in any, on any spectrum. So that's what she started with, and I loved it. She talked a lot about DNA, and first, before she talked a lot about leadership DNA, but before she talked about the leadership piece, she just talked about DNA, and she gave the example of Kayla. I'm not sure if you guys know, I never know how to say her last name, but Amy Kosmowski, is that how you say her last name? She's a Diamond Ambassador in Delaware, I think, and her daughter's name is Kayla. Kayla has Down syndrome, and Amy's main purpose and mission, even before Plexus, is she works with an organization. I think she started it, or she's like one of the founders, called Changing the Face of Beauty. And Kayla, actually, I saw on their Facebook, is in New York right now doing a photo shoot for advertising for another company. I think it was Oshkosh. Maybe not, now that I said that. Anyway, Carrie Wilkerson gave the example of Kayla and how Kayla's DNA is the DNA of someone with Down syndrome. So she has that extra chromosome. And she talked about how, you can't deny that. You can't deny someone's DNA. If I look like my dad, or if I look like my mom, I can't deny that. If my children have my same color hair, you can put Adelaide and I, if we tilt our heads like this and our hair mingles, you can't tell the difference. Our hair is identical. She can't deny that she has my hair. But she talked about the difference of not having to default to your DNA, and then the difference of being able to defy your DNA. So you can, we can't deny it, but we don't have to fall back on that and live in that place. And she's talking obviously not about like hair and eyes, but the DNA that we have in terms of how we act and hold ourselves and lead. And she talked about how we can defy it. And she gave the example of a remodel versus the builder's model, and how when you look at a house and there's a builder's model and that's set and that's how it comes, and then you remodel it, and how obviously we are all created in the image of God, right? And we are all created in a beautiful image of the Lord, but we also are born in a fallen nature. And so we can take and remodel those things in us that are not the way they should be. And so then she dove into leadership DNA. And I just wanted to give that example about Kayla because I felt like that was such a good example. And she talked about how they are defying the cultural norm of what Down syndrome looks like and what the cultural norm says Down syndrome should mean. And I just really liked that example. So that's why I wanted to share that. But she talked about DNA. And she talked about how you don't have to be born with leadership DNA, that you can create it and that you can allow it to grow in yourself, even if you just have a little bit or if you feel like you have none. And she gave some examples, of course, from her own life and things like that, but I'm not going to repeat all of that. But she also talked about, here, I'm just going to hold this up here so I don't have to keep leaning out of the camera. She basically said that you can determine and decide where you go from this point forward. So in life and in Plexus. So you might be who's on this call? You might be a silver ambassador in Plexus, but you can decide to change that. You might be an ambassador and not yet silver. You might be a ruby, you might be whatever, but you can decide that from today forward, regardless of what my rank is, I'm going to work my business like a fill in the blank, like a gold ambassador, like a diamond ambassador, like a whatever. Or, you know what, I might struggle in this particular area of self-confidence, but from this day forward, I'm changing that. Or I might not view myself as a leader, but from this day forward, I'm changing that. And she basically just said, you determine and decide what the rest of your life looks like. Like today is a new day, tomorrow is a new day, and you decide what it looks like. And then she broke down DNA into 3 things, one for each letter. And she started talking about D. And she put up a slide that said desire and drive. She talked a little bit about that. And then she said, but really, when in network marketing, the desperation is what causes that desire and drive. And desperation is something that can be created for you, whether it's like a layoff or a medical emergency or something happens in your life that creates a desperation. Or you can create it yourself. You can say, I don't care what my life looks like. It might look great. I think Celeste Gwynn is a great example of that. Celeste didn't have a created desperation that we know about or that she shares about. She was wealthy. She'd already had success with the products. She didn't have a, forced upon her desperation. But she chose to be desperate. And then, so here I'm like taking notes on all these things, right? And then she says, but wait, that's not the D. The D is destination. And I was like, I'm like, she's messing up my notes. Like I wanted it to be all orderly. And she talked about how you cannot be a leader without a destination. And I really liked that. Like if you don't have a place that you're leading people to, then you're not a leader. And I thought that was like such a key thing that I don't know that I've ever thought of it that way before. And she talked about in terms of network marketing, our destination is often our why. Why are we doing network marketing? Why are we doing Plexus? What is the goal? Like, what is our end result? And then she stopped and she's like, I want to tell you guys that extra money is not a destination. And we've all talked about like breaking down our why into more of an emotional reason, right? Like what's the emotional response? But it made a lot more sense when she talked about, like obviously making money isn't a destination. If you said, where are you going? Making money, well, that's not a place, So thinking true, like, okay, financial freedom, that's a destination. Or, being able to fully support my family is a destination. So, looking, or even getting the cost of my products paid for is a destination. So she talked about finding that destination. And she said, until you mean it, that you're going to have excuses and negativity, that it's easy to come up with excuses and negativity until we really mean our destination and our chosen destination. One thing, is that in this section? No, it's in a different section, so I'll save it for that section. Without a clear enough destination, or with a clear enough destination, the vehicle doesn't matter. So, regardless of the type of vehicle, maybe say a sports car versus a charter bus, where the charter bus is going to move a little slower, the sports car is going to move a little faster. Regardless of the vehicle, the destination stays the same. This part was so key for me, and it's something I want to do that I have not done yet. She said, you have to agree on your destination with your shareholders. And she talked about your shareholders being your family, your spouse, your children, the people in your life that are truly invested in your life, and how you have the importance of sharing what your vision is and your destination, and then agreeing upon it with your shareholders. So sitting down with your husband and talking okay, this is my goal. What is your goal? What is, this is where I'm at with Plexus. This is what I want to do. Are you okay with that? What do you think about that? If we could have financial freedom, what would your dream be? What would your destination be? Having those conversations with your spouse, and then with your children. Obviously my children and Mary Ellen's children and Barbara's children are at a different place than Jess and I in terms of our journey with our children. But communicating to our children, for me to communicate, especially to my older kids, mommy's working Plexus for a reason. This is my reason. And that might mean that some nights I'm not able to fully participate in the family movie because I'm going to have a 20-minute phone call before bed or whatever. Obviously, family is number one in my life. And I think if you know me, you know that about me, hopefully. But I'm not saying you sacrifice your whole family, but having that conversation with your family so they know. And, a lot of times, I'll use myself for example. I had been a stay-at-home mom for 5 years when I started Plexus. And not just that, but since my very first year of marriage, I had either been working with my husband or staying home. And so when my husband and I worked together, we literally, our backs could touch. Our desks were this, and so our backs were to each other. So we either worked very much together, or I was a stay-at-home mom. And so it was a big shift for our family in terms of recognizing that, my attention now has another place to be divided. And obviously my family still comes first before Plexus, but there is something else that my attention is going to. And that was a shift and something we had to adjust with. So communicating that with your family, the people that are invested in you, and coming to an agreement. Some people have said, you will hear Diamond say, you know what, it was a big sacrifice. I sacrificed a lot for 1.5 years to be where I am, and it was worth it. Other people will say, you know what, it took me 4 years to get to Emerald, or 4 years to get to Diamond, and I still worked very hard, but their priorities were different along the way. So, some people will say, I missed sports events. I missed, there were things I missed. I heard somebody talking about how they worked their business when they were on vacation at Disney, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you say, you know what, it's not important enough to me to be Diamond next year in order, to give up certain things. And that's okay. You just have to know where you're at, what your destination is, how long, you're willing to take, and discuss it with your family and your kids. It might not, it's not worth causing, a marriage splitting argument over whether you get there 6 months faster or not, if that makes sense. And obviously we can't fully control the time that we get there, but we can control our activity, and that activity determines how fast we get there. So, if we're working 15 hours a day, then we're going to get there a little bit faster than if we're working 15 minutes a day. And so kind of getting on the same page with your family. And sometimes those are things that you have to work through a little bit so that you are on the same page. Hang on, I need to turn the page and my hands are full of a baby. Okay. N was narrative. And we've talked a lot about this, especially with our book study, what to say when you talk to yourself. She basically said, what's running through your head and out of your mouth, and that you create your own narrative. This is something actually tonight I sat down with my big kids and we worked on positive affirmations and the things that, they struggle with and the things that they want to speak life into in their life, we have to make a conscious choice to have positive affirmations. There are certain things that we naturally excel at, that we're naturally great at, and that's awesome. Those things are going to come natural. But there are other things that we naturally struggle with, and unless we choose to change our narrative, we're going to continue to struggle. And so that is so key, is choosing to change your narrative, writing it down, and choosing to say it out loud all the time. And one thing she talked about was we have to own it. It's very easy to blame others, but when we blame others, we're not taking control over what we can change. Saying, well, I grew up in a family that fill in the blank, or my husband fill in the blank. When we blame other people, we're not owning it. And when we're not owning it, we can't change it. So taking control of it and changing that narrative. And then she talked about, wow, with or without you, like, I'm going to do this. You have people in your life that are negative or, put you down or whatever. Taking that with or without you. I'm going to do this, whether you believe me or not, whether you join me or not, I'm going to do this. And then she sort of like branched off for a second before she went to A, and she talked about metamorphosis. And I thought it was so cool. I didn't know this. She was actually hilarious. A few times during the talk, she would stop and be like, now, I read that somewhere. Don't go sending me scientific articles proving me wrong. I just thought it was so funny because we've all been there, right? Where, especially with Plexus, where we say something that we think is accurate, and maybe it is, and then somebody tries to prove us wrong by being all intelligent, which is good to be intelligent. You want to be smart. You want to make sure you're saying the truth. But I just thought it was so funny when she was like, I read this. Don't be sending me science articles proving me wrong. So she talked about metamorphosis and how a caterpillar and a butterfly have the exact same DNA, and how what happens when the caterpillar goes into the cocoon, it actually breaks down and becomes mush. If you were to open up a cocoon in the middle, it's like mush, and then it reforms into a butterfly. I'm not sure if that's a specific type of caterpillar and butterfly or all of them. I don't know. I've never heard this before. But she was just talking about, how oftentimes those things that seem to be the most breaking become the building blocks of our metamorphosis. And those things that seem to be destroying what we want our dreams to be are really what's breaking us out of what we used to be and bringing us into what we're going to be. And I really liked that. And this is where I mentioned earlier, she talked about it in a different section, so I'll save it. She basically said that keeping an undeclared destination gives you less accountability, and you don't have to achieve it. So it gives you, when you don't declare where you're going, it gives you a freedom to say, well, I did not reach my goal. I didn't have that goal. So like, you have that little small voice inside of you, like, okay, this is really what I want, but you don't declare it and you don't announce it and you don't, shout it from the rooftops, then you don't have that accountability. So it gives you the freedom to fail. And she talked a lot about choosing to declare that destination, be bold in it, owning it, and sharing it so that you have that accountability and that reason to move forward and not allow yourself to have those excuses and negativity towards not achieving your destination. So the very last thing was action, and that A was for action. And she talked about how not just busy action, but meaningful action, and how we have to be in alignment in terms of network marketing. And she talked about being in alignment with our products. We have to be a product of the product. We have to take the products, being in alignment with what we're saying. Like for me, for those of you that are training your teams, we have to be in alignment. We have to do the things that we're telling other people to do. That core action of reaching out, following up, sending samples, closing the deal, that pattern, that cycle of making sure that that's the action we're doing, and we do that action first before we manage our team or talk with people or joke with sidelines or, sidelines are great. They're super important. Just like training your team is super important, but doing that action first and getting that out of the way, which I think that's something, we've typically heard before. But so that was pretty much what she shared. She was kind of funny. She said she's used to talking for 90 minutes and they only gave her 45. It was funny. But it was great. I really enjoyed what she had to say. If you don't follow her on Facebook, absolutely follow her because she has a lot of great things. She posts cute quotes and I really like a lot of what she shares. I am going to end the recording